about an emergency is really challenging because, as the field is new, especially with artificial intelligence and similarly data analytics, especially with big data and all, because the field is new, we all are trying to, figure it out. How do we do things with these new emerging technologies? That's why, I accepted this invitation to discuss this because I hope I would also be able to make better sense of what exactly is ethical stand in using these tools by attending this session, interacting with all of you and all that. So I'm really honored to be here and interact with all of you. I was not able to exactly attend earlier sessions, so my suggestion is that I would progress with my whatever ideas I have brought here today. If you have questions, if you have things to ask me, you can obviously mention that in the chat. And if you feel like you need to interrupt me in between, you can even do that. That's not a problem, okay? Because this needs to be more interactive. And I would also, before I go on with my lecture, I would also like to ask the participants that, you might have, because now all of us have been facing this thing that there is a lot of generative AI tools available. Yesterday, or maybe day before yesterday, Go 3 is issued or launched by Elon Musk and all. So on a daily basis, new tools are coming out, and typically these kind of workshops or even sessions number them and try to teach you how to use them. Typically this is what happens. Okay, for example, there is a new tool which would draft literature reviews for you. Like, as researchers, there is a tool which would draft literature reviews for you. So I have seen or attended workshops which teaches you how to use those tools. Okay, so I'm pretty sure, being faculty, being researchers, you might have also gone through tutorials or sessions which tells you how to use an AI tool. Okay, so while doing this, I want to ask the audience, if somebody wants to respond now before I go on with my lecture, have you ever had questions about about the use of these kind of tools? Or even when you use ChatGPT or similar tools, have you ever had questions in your mind like, okay, is it okay to use the tool, or what is the correct way to use this tool? Have you ever had any questions like that? Or if you have similar questions, uh, if you can take 2 minutes and let me know, that would also help me in taking forward my discussion. If you don't want to share questions right now, that's okay. But if you have any questions like this, yeah. Meanwhile, you think about the questions. I would share my uh, presentation, like the decks. So that, just a second, where is it? Yeah, am I visible?
Yes, sir. You're visible, and the
Yeah.
slide is also perfect.
All right, fine. So I don't see questions forthcoming. That's perfectly fine, because, maybe we will find more questions by the time I complete my discussion here. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, the questions like you have seen, I'm pretty sure you have used AI tools. So whether you have any questions about what is the right way of uh, using this tool, because when we talk about right way, that is basically the idea of ethics. The correct way, the way of morally doing the right thing, is mostly the basics of all ethical approaches. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is, obviously ethics is a very broader area, and when it comes to AI and data analytics and the ethical aspects of these in media research especially, it's a very broader area. It is not possible to cover everything in just 1 hour or 1.5 hours. So I'm just going to focus mainly on the idea of ethics as a method in in media research, especially, and generally in social science research, especially at the time of we are having these AI tools, and we are going through or living in an era of big data. So, what exactly is the ethical aspect, especially when it comes to research methods? Now, when we say ethics as a method, we don't mean that ethics as a method of generating data. It's rather the other way. Like, uh, how can data generating methods or research methods, research design can actually uh, like switch between being ethical and being unethical. That is my major idea here, or my major intention here. And many a time I have seen audience expecting a ready reckoner at the end of the session, like, can you give me a checklist of what is correct and what is incorrect ethically when it comes to AI tools? It is, I'm not going to possibly like, if you are also expecting that, I'm sorry, I am not going to give you a list of a checklist which would help you decide whether you are using the tool correctly or not. We will broadly discuss, and I hope that discussion brings forth new questions in your mind, which takes you forward, because this is an emerging area and there is no consensus on what exactly is ethical way of using AI and big data. But there are general themes. That's what we will discuss. Okay. And also, I would discuss a couple of case studies, some of which you already know, and would try to see what exactly was the situation, why did this happen, and what could be a way of being ethically cautious. Okay, and obviously, I hope our interactions later or during the session would take it further, take our understanding further. So, let's look at the idea of data ethics, because we are talking about uh, ethical use or data analytics and ethical research along with AI tools. So all these ideas, data analytics, big data, AI, machine learning, algorithms, all these are actually overlapping, let's say, ideas, entities, practices. So the idea of data ethics is applicable to all these, because as I can see, all of this actually deal with a lot of digital data, usually a huge amount of digital data. Okay, so there is this idea of data ethics. I'm pretty sure many of you know this already, but for people who are not very aware of this, I'm just bringing this very famous definition by Floridi and Tadeo about what is data ethics. So, according to them, it is the branch of ethics that studies and evaluates moral problems related to data. Like, when we talk about what is morally correct about data, it can include generation. How do you generate the data, and whether you are documenting its generation? How are you recording? Are you having a database? Are you capturing the transient data? Or how do you what kind of data is being collected, and whether are you going to use the entire data you are collecting and recording, or is there any kind of curation is involved? And if there is some kind of curation or filtering involved, what is getting filtered, what is being retained? Like, these are all questions when it comes to data generation, its management and analysis. So these all questions lead to ethical, like, basically these are all ethical questions. So as researchers, when you have data, whether huge data sets or even smaller data sets, it invariably goes through processing. Now, you see, if you look at data processing as a research practice or otherwise, you see it involves a series of decisions. Now, these decisions are not necessarily from the researcher only. Obviously, you are the researcher, you are taking decisions, and you are deciding that, okay, I'm going to do this particular kind of analysis. This is the test tactic I want to use. This is what I want to find. All these are decisions from your side. But most often, what happens is that uh, you are not the only one who is taking these decisions. Uh, for example, like many of the researchers have to use some kind of tool, AI or otherwise, even softwares, at the time of processing the data. okay, because we live in a type of time of digital data, so we usually collect data in digital format, or even if we have data in other formats, we convert it into digital format and then process it through using some tools. Okay, before I complete that line of thought, let me come to the next line, that is dissemination. So you can also see that the typical kind of research output we see in social sciences, especially in media research, after data processing, you disseminate that your findings to the larger audience, academic audience or otherwise. So most of the time it comes out in the form of research papers or other kind of publications, which invariably carries, let's say, visualizations, visualizing your findings in the form of graphs, sometimes other kind of visualizations and all that. So you can see that both these steps, processing and dissemination, obviously is coming from a series of uh, decisions made by the researcher or the teams of researcher, but there are also other kind of entities involved in this. For example, uh, I don't know, how do you produce graphs or data visualizations? I hope you had a session on data visualizations in the last or previous session. Uh, so you can see that there are a lot of tools available. There are tools which are available for people who don't know much about programming. People who have programming ability, they use other kind of tools like d3.js or whatever. Okay, so but you can see that all this processing and dissemination of your research results invariably involves other kind of entities. It is not only your decisions which brings out the final output. This is where this ethical questions becomes much more complex than you taking the correct decision. Sometimes the tool you use or the kind of filtering mechanism you are using in the form of a scrapping algorithm or a tool which scraps social media data from Twitter, or I mean things like that. This may also be bringing certain moral problems into your research method. That is why the idea of data ethics deals with or addresses or try to addresses all these steps involved in data generation, its processing, and later dissemination and sharing. Okay, so when we talk about data ethics, it's not just about raw data collection. It is also about other entities like algorithms, sometimes there are artificial agents, or when we talk about robots, we usually think about something which is of a humanoid shape, but as you know, robots also can be just a piece of script which runs across internet and collects some kind of user data. So what does it do, especially if it is part of your research design? What does it do? Why do you collect this data, and how does it collect this data? These are all questions that may need to be asked from an ethical perspectives. Okay, so similarly, data ethics deals with other kind of corresponding practices, like what kind of programming is involved. All the steps which we discussed earlier sometimes can be done through programming at your own end, or using a tool which is already a set of programs or a set of instructions which is done by somebody else. Okay, so it should all invariably result in formulating and supporting morally good solution. One of the reasons why social science research exists, and why it takes the research forward, is to find solutions that would improve the life of the public, or life of the humans, quality of life of the humans. As you know, for example, if you look at the present scenario, there is a lot of research going on about fake news, misinformation, its impact, its forms, and the ways to tackle it, things like that. So why does it happen? So because we have identified that there is actually a severe impact to public life and even human health, human life and all, due to this circulation of information which is of dubious quality. So we are trying to find, generally, as social science researchers as well as other kind of researchers, we are trying to understand how this problem can be solved, because generally this is all aimed at bringing out morally good solutions. You will not find many of you will not find a corpus of research which tries to understand how can you create more effective misinformation campaigns. because you see that's not a morally good solution. That is going to make things worse. Maybe there are entities which does this kind of research, but fortunately that does not come out in the public platform because it is considered unethical. So you can see that generally these aspects apply to data ethics as well. All these processes and the ethical questions associated with it should formulate and support morally good solutions. So this is just an introduction to what exactly is data ethics. Further moving ahead, the earlier idea which I talked about, this is not my idea. There are other people who have already proposed this idea, especially related to research related to big data. Especially Markham's work in this case is very seminal. So what does this idea of ethics as a method, it tries to understand ethics from a different perspective. Okay, for generally when we talk about ethics, especially ethics in research or ethics in other aspects, ethics is mostly considered a philosophical stance, like a particular kind of perspective, philosophical perspective, because you can see that ethics is always associated with a moral judgment. And if you consider the case of societies, this idea of what is morally correct or morally right or what is morally wrong changes from one society to another. In general parlance, or in general life, or in your everyday life, what is considered ethical changes from societies to societies depending on cultural as well as other kind of backgrounds. But you can see that in all these cases, this is a moral judgment. You see, this is something which you primarily think in your mind. Like it's a philosophical stance. You have an idea that okay, taking bribes is it's wrong. But then there are a lot of people who thinks that if you take the bribe and nobody knows about it, it's not at all, it's not a big problem. Okay, so but this idea itself is different for people who are coming from different kind of cultures, different kind of countries, different kind of social backgrounds. Okay, because in certain countries, you see, bribery is considered normal. But in some other countries, bribery is considered ethically and morally wrong. So my point is that most of the time, not most of the time, all the time, ethics is considered a philosophical perspective. Okay, and obviously, what your judgment, your moral judgment about what is correct and what is not, uh, most of the time guides your action. Like we have this idea that considering considering the weakest or being considerate about the weakest is the ethically right thing to do. We culturally consider this a very important ethical stand. So that is why you will not try to what you call try to be confrontational with somebody whom you consider weak. I mean, philosophically speaking, you can see that that is an action part of the ethical thinking you have. So generally, ethics is considered as a philosophical perspective, but it is always manifest. It always manifests in the form of an action. So when it comes to social science research or other kind of research which is ethically concerned, you can see that the idea of ethics as a philosophical stance most of the time boils down to what you do as researcher. And when it comes to what you do as researcher, it is not just the methodology part of the the typical research output, which is in the form of a research paper. Because mostly when you write a research paper or a thesis, you do have a section which is devoted to tell others that what you did. Okay, that is the methods part. But ethics as a method, as we have already seen, it's broadly a value rationality. It's a rational idea from your standpoint about what is of the right value. But when it is produced and reinforced through initially or in the primary form, it is a philosophical stance. But in the case of research as well as other cases, it is what you do as a researcher which makes ethics in ethics as a method. But at the same time, it is not just the methodology part of your research work. It can be more than that. It can be also about uh, the kind of dissemination you do. For example, you have collected a huge data set which involves a lot of personal details of a lot of people. You have scrapped it through using some tools from social media. Typically, this information is publicly available information, so it might appear like sharing this data set as a supplementary resource with your publication is an okay thing, like but uh, but whether the people, the kind of data which you are going to share, is it properly anonymized, or is it going to reveal certain information or data related to the people who are associated with this data uh, without their consent, or without their informed consent. This could actually be part of ethics being a method in social science research. You can see that this sharing the supplementary data file after your research is completed is not exactly a method part. Okay, it's something which happens after your research is completed, but it can also have an implication for ethics as a method. Okay, so the bottom line here is that ethics, despite being a philosophical stance, is it becomes a matter of method. It is basically it manifests in what you do as a researcher, and this is what makes it a bit, let's say, tricky uh, when we are talking about ethics as a method or ethical methods in the present era, which we are trying to take forward social science research, is because now we see a lot of, as I told you earlier, I see a flurry of workshops which promises to tell you about new tools, mostly AI tools, which would help you simplify, or sometimes even to do the whole research, right from generating idea to drafting the design, to collecting data, analyzing it, and even writing the manuscript. I've seen these kind of promises. We see it a lot on social media. Organizations and researchers coming forward as AI experts. I mean, ironically, I'm also claiming to be an AI expert here, but still, I'm at least not telling you how to, use a tool. So my point is that all these kind of new tools are purportedly bringing in a methodological innovation, means a new way of, let's say, collecting data, or it is a simplified way of analyzing and generating research output and things like that. Okay, but generally, if you look at the history of research, especially social science research, methodological innovation has always associated with the idea of validity. For example, if you look at the form of audience research that has evolved over a period of time, we can see that initial forms of audience research was like the survey methods, diary methods, things like that. But with the coming of internet-based media consumption, you can see that the way audience data getting collected and the kind of insights being generated changed. Obviously, we see that the kind of methods, what we otherwise call audience analytics or web analytics, uh, give you more valid results, or because it collects more specific data, and it has a larger or a broader scope of surveillance and data collection involved. Because otherwise, what happens when you are running a general traditional survey as part of audience research methods, you are picking a sample, then administering a questionnaire, and then collecting that responses and generating insights from that responses to understand what exactly your audience is thinking about your media product, maybe. But at the same, in the case of web analytics, as you are aware, because we are using apps, websites, and things like that on a daily basis, you see that whenever you are on a website, whenever you are using an app, you know, all your interactions, including a simple visit, or when you drop off from a YouTube video to watch another, that is generating a data point. that you are contributing to a larger data set about yourself when you are just scrolling through social media space. So you can see that this is collecting more valid data from that perspective, methodological innovation. Okay, so historically, social science research or other kind of research methods have always looked at methodological innovation as a case of bringing more valid methods or bringing in more valid ways of collecting data. Okay, but you can see that when we are standing at the present, having a lot of AI tools and new models are coming out, new LLM models are coming out, and NLP features, NLP quality, natural language processing abilities are of machine learning algorithms are growing on a daily basis. In all these cases, uh, the question is no more about the ethical question is no more about the validity of the kind of data it generates, or the kind of methodological innovation and the validity associated with it. It has grown. These questions have grown from that point to another focus. So if we look at some of these questions, mostly it's about the standing point of the researcher, your role as a researcher. So when you are using an AI tool, or when you are using, let's say, big data analytics as part of your method, as a social science researcher or otherwise, what exactly is your on role as a researcher? What are you doing? What are you trying to do? What is your intention? And how much, what you call, how much agency you have. I hope you may be aware of this idea of agency. Agency can be very in a very simple format, or in a very simple form, be called as your ability to do things, or your ability to uh, take a series of decisions to uh, commit action to reach a particular kind of result. Okay, so this is what we do typically as researchers. This is the idea which I implied in my initial part of this lecture, that as a researcher you have a lot of agency, and you use your agency to come out with findings you are trying to, or come out with answers which you are trying to find. You can see that this agency differs, because this agency is not just an idea which is restricted to research. It is actually a social, we have different forms of agency, and we exercise it, and we differ in terms of the kind of agency we have. You know this already, but I'm just trying to what do you call explain. For example, let's look at the case of a typical third world researcher, and the case of let's say researchers from other part of the world, in terms of how do they possibly use AI tools. Okay, for example, I have seen third world researchers. This is in no way trying to tell that third world is very bad or anything, but the kind of resources you have is very limited. Okay, for example, I happen to see another researcher's presentation on how he used uh, GPT models in uh, content analysis. So he had a huge data set of social media messages. Especially, this is about how do journalists in UK are bullied, or on social media. So this person basically scrapped all the responses on Twitter to journalists, British journalists, during a period, and then tried to code those individual tweets in terms of whether they are hostile, whether they are responding to journalist as a person, or responding to the output of the journalist, like the story which he or she did, and what is the nature of this particular kind of what you call social media messages. Okay, so his intention was to see how much animosity journalists, especially British journalists, face on social media space. So for this purpose, he used GPT, especially ChatGPT, to sorry, I got a call in between. Uh, ChatGPT to do the coding, the content analysis coding which you would do otherwise manually. He used GPT to do this coding. And the whole lecture was about how was his experience and all that. Okay, so what I have noticed is that he was able to use the, like, the pro version of ChatGPT, and also he actually run the model, not the chat bot which you would otherwise typically use. Okay, one of the reasons why he was doing this, I mean, there are two reasons maybe, is that one thing is that he had the wherewithal to buy and run the model and also pay for the tokens. Okay, many of us working in Indian universities will not have this liberty of going and getting the actual raw model and running it to find or aid your research method. Most of us, what we'll do, we will ask the chatbot, the chat GPT or similar tools directly to help you do the research thing. So this is where the agency differs. The agency differs here in two ways. One way is that the agency, we can call this intersectional agency, because you as a third world researcher and the kind of resources and capabilities you have got, uh, is shaping how you're going to use this AI tool in your research. At the same time, the kind of tool you are going to use, because your comparative resourceless situation is take to use a chatbot, which is again shaping your agency. Because the way, one of the reasons why this researcher does not use the chatbot version of GPT is because it has a lot of let's say bias, or let's say hallucinations, when it comes to a process like coding social media data. Okay, so my point is that agency is, in the present day scenario, agency is not only human agency when it comes to social science research. It is also the non-human entities involved in the research, like the AI tools you use, or for that matter any kind of other kind of machine learning algorithms or other kind of softwares you use, have certain level of agency, which kind of brings in what do you call, which kind of takes away the accountability you have as a researcher. Like, you cannot claim to have, you cannot claim to be 100% accountable for what you did as part of your study if you don't know the kind of tool you are using and the kind of bias it has. So that is where your agency as a researcher gets slightly uh, let's say overlapped with the agency of the tool. So when we talk about use of AI tools in social science research methods, the ethical way of using it, you need to think about yourself as your role as a researcher and what role is this tool playing. I don't know whether I'm making it more confusing for you. I cannot see what is happening in the chat either, if there is any questions. But maybe I would try to give you a very simple example, maybe. At least I think it is a simple example. I suppose you also understand this. So I've seen a couple of instances on LinkedIn where people who are promising that they have written several papers and also published in good journals, and they are suggesting that if you need guidance on how to use ChatGPT for increasing your productivity, especially academic productivity, in terms of writing and publishing papers, academic papers in academic journals, you can approach them. That is the gist of the kind of messages. I'm not talking about a single individual. There are several individuals who post these kind of messages, and uh, and obviously we know about the existence of paper mills which also utilize similar kind of methods and all that. Okay, so if you look at this, what is happening here, why does this, sorry about the noise from outside, I'm not in a very secluded area, so this happens. If you look at what is happening here, is that we have got a new technology, and people are kind of uh, excited about the affordances of these kind of new tools which comes out. So this excitement often makes them forget these kind of basic questions. Like in this case, if GPT is writing the whole manuscript, if it is generating the data also, if it is doing the analysis also, and if it is writing the whole manuscript, uh, what is your role as a researcher? What are you contributing? Are you going to be, who is accountable for the kind of findings you are bringing out? or are you going to give the whole agency to the tool which you are using, or are you going to retain your agency and your accountability? So this is one of the aspects when, this is a kind of very basic question which you need to ask to make sure that you are uh, you are ethically right, or you are uh, trying to be uh, using ethics as a method in your social science research project or something like that. Okay, so at the same time, there is especially when you deal with big data or data analytics, uh, it would appear like these are just data points. For example, I told you about this. If you run a YouTube channel, you know this. Uh, you have a YouTube channel, so you post videos and all that, and after a week, you look at the analytics, like to see how your videos are, what you call, getting engaged from different kind of people, different kind of audiences. So there, this is all just numbers. You see that your average video watch duration has increased by this percentage, and people typically visit from these areas, and all this typically is presented in the form of numbers. But at the same time, I mean, at this particular example, it's fine because you are only seeing these numbers. But at the same time, if you think about how does these numbers come in front of you, in case of YouTube analytics, is, it comes through a very elaborate data infrastructure set up by Google to surveil people who are on that platform, including you, and then using those interactions people do on that platform, converting that into data points and presenting it as numbers. And they are not presenting these numbers only to you, who is the content creator, but also to others, advertisers, and the whatever other ways they are using that data. I mean, I am not sure about what all ways platforms are using my data. Okay, so there is a lot of concerns about the transparency of this particular kind of data infrastructures and their data processing. And most of the time, these kind of data infrastructures does not see the people behind data, they see only the data. So if, as researchers, you also use these kind of data infrastructures and forget that these data actually stand for people, like, this could actually lead to ethically wrong decisions. Okay, so it all comes down to the earlier idea. Ethics is a philosophical standpoint, but it manifests when you take action. And this is not in the form of there is a checklist which you can apply one after another. This is actually another critique about ethical guidelines, because most of the time what happens with ethical reviews are most of the time very rigid, because there is a list of items, list of requirements which you need to get qualified to get the ethical review. Okay, so here you can see that this is more like applying an ethical guideline on a situation. But the other thing, asking broader ethical questions and trying to find answer and move ahead like that, then you are producing ethics than applying ethics to your from a rigid or from a different contextual standpoint. I hope this is making some sense to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please.
Yeah, okay, okay. Also, please, what is the time now, like how much time is left?
Sir, you can continue, sir.
Yeah, all right, thank you. Because this full screen presentation is a problem, I cannot see anything else. Okay, now if you look at the state of ethical guidelines when it comes to data analytics, or even the use of AI in research, you would see that there are general consensus. I'm not saying that there is no consensus, but there are also differing standpoints, differing opinions. This is not a case just with AI ethics. This is a case with many of the ethical questions which we face in social sciences research or otherwise also, because finding universally acceptable ethical guidelines is very problematic. It's very challenging, because that itself would that itself would defeat the purpose of trying to be ethically correct. Because what is ethically correct in case of social situations, what is ethically correct for a situation from a particular cultural context may not be ethically correct in another similar context from another culture. So you cannot rigidly or blindly apply one set of rules into all kind of contexts. That is what makes ethical decisions or ethical considerations to have contextual integrity. Your ethical decisions, ethical thinking should be associated and should be in line with the context in which you are trying to apply that, to do that action or to apply that ethical aspect. So so having a list of what is ethically correct and what is ethically incorrect is very challenging. But at the same time, we have general consensus over what is ethically correct and what is ethically incorrect. And usually what happens when a new set of uh, technology emerges, or even a new kind of change happens in the society generally, people take time to figure out what is happening and how it is going to affect their lives. Okay, we have seen this. We are fortunate or unfortunate enough to see this during the times of COVID. There was actually an unprecedented uh, pandemic situation, which all of us were seeing for the first time in our life. So things changed a lot. People did not realize or understand what is happening, what is going to be the future, and how they can tackle the situation. Everybody was confused. So you could see that there was a lot of uh, wrong decisions taken. And also, many people thought that this is something like a doomsday scenario, because you see, new situation, a change, an immediate change. So people are trying to figure it out. Okay. Same is the case with the kind of scenario which we are talking about now. AI is not new. Artificial intelligence is not new. If you look into the kind of research that goes into generating and developing AI. But suddenly what happens is that a product of artificial intelligence research or research in developing artificial intelligence became much popular. It became more accessible. For example, natural language processing, NLP, which is one of the basic streams which contributes to the development of large language models, like what is behind ChatGPT and all, is not new. It has been there at least for a decade or so. But the products, the kind of developments were very niche. These products or developments were known to only, let's say, B2B communities, or like that. But when what happens when these kind of LLMs became popular, accessible to a lot of public, uh, it appeared like this is groundbreaking. I'm not trying to bring down its importance. I obviously agree with the significance of the historic moment. But at the same time, my argument is that this is a point where we are witnessing a sudden change. We are still figuring out. Okay. So having an ethical guideline, a set of ethical rules to apply at this point of time, is uh, it is not useful, because things would change, and we are still going through the turbulence. It will take some time to settle. Then maybe there is more or larger consensus on what is the ethically correct way, in terms of using a particular research design which takes aid from AI, as well as other kind of data analytics tools or agents, and all kind of what kind of research context you can use it for. So there is general consensus which we will discuss in the coming slides. But my point is that having or expecting a rigid set of rules at this point of time uh, uh, is not possible. Okay. One of the reasons why this is challenging is because the basic tenets or basic considerations when we develop ethical frameworks or ethical rules is slightly overlapping here. For example, most of the time, if you look at the legal system, okay, so the legal system, uh, in case of a legally, what do you call, if somebody commits a crime, there is a very clear way of uh, pointing out who is accountable, who is responsible for that, and then there are a set of legal or other kind of actions. This is the case with most of the ethical situations. Okay, so people try to take ethically correct decisions because most of the time, uh, the accountability of, not most of the time, all the time, the accountability and responsibility of that decision you take, you are accountable or responsible for it. Okay, because you have uh, employed your agency to take a decision. Now whether if it is ethically wrong, you are accountable, you are responsible, you have to face the consequences, or like rectify your mistakes if you have done something wrong. So this is the very basic idea of accountability and, let's say, responsibility in ethical thinking. But when it comes to use of AI tools in research, you see this accountability appears to be a bit vague. Okay, so you as a researcher is using a particular AI tool in your research method, maybe for whatever reason, or maybe you are trying to use data analysis, or maybe, like many people argue, you are using an AI tool to draft the literature review section, because apparently many believe that literature review section is just padding. It is not exactly the important part of a research paper, so you can use a tool and just write it. Okay, now after you have done this and you have published it, now people know that there is hallucination and things like that. But initially when ChatGPT became popular and all, people believe that this is like gold. You can ask ChatGPT anything, it will answer you. So many people were, including me, were what do you call, shocked to see that you ask about a new theoretical stand to ChatGPT, it gives you like 10 references to read and understand more, and it also gives you gyan that this is what is happening and this is where it is going and all that. But when you check the references, try to read the whole, you see that these references does not exist. As you know, the uh, LLMs hallucinate a lot. In fact, they hallucinate the whole time. But we take some of them, we consider some of them non-factual because they don't exist. So my point is that, so this literature review which you are trying to draft with the help of ChatGPT sneaked in a couple of references which does not exist, or which is just hallucinated by the LLM. So who is responsible here? Now your paper went for, you submitted it to a journal, it went for review, it got through poor peer review, that happens a lot, and it got published. And after it get published, some researcher who actually reads the literature review part, reads it, find that a couple of interesting references, I mean, in-text citations, goes to the references and finds that this kind of work does not exist. Okay, now who is responsible for this? You can see that this instance happen after a lot of people have taken a lot of decisions, including you as a researcher, the journal editor, peer reviewer, and publisher, everybody. Okay, so they have taken a lot of decisions which made this thing go out as what you call acceptable social science research. And somebody found that, okay, these couple of instances of citations does not exist. So who is responsible? Can you all who is involved in this series of actions say that because it was written by GPT, it is responsible? It is not how, in a general scenario where humans are involved, you know like consider you did not have GPT, you had another co-author who wrote that particular section of the literature review, and he or she sneaked in a couple of citations which were not really existent. So who is responsible, accountable here? Very clear, that co-author who wrote that part. But in case of where you actually took the help of GPT to write your literature review section, GPT here is just an example. You can call it any XYZ app which is available now for these kind of purposes. Who is responsible? The app is not primarily responsible. It is the author who is responsible. But you can see that here the accountability, the responsibility aspect is a bit vague because a lot of entities are involved. It is not just the human entity who is, let's say, responsible for this mistake. The mistake there is the mistake of not having human oversight. But the other kind of mistake, like why does the model hallucinate? Maybe it is a mistake, or it is a point where the accountability lies with the developers, or maybe with the training data. So my point is that uh, when it comes to talking about ethics of using AI tools in social science research or other kind of research, uh, finding or pinning accountability is not easy. But you can see that in the coming slides, we'll talk about the general consensus, where you can see that there are general conventions which are followed these days. For example, most of the publishers don't allow, initially, some of them allowed, but nowadays they don't allow AI boards as co authors because boards cannot be accountable. So it can be only human authors. So you can see that this is general conventions. And also we have seen that like I think most of you are aware of this aspect, that algorithms or these kind of AI tools, whatever you call, because eventually all kind of AI tools are machine learning algorithms. They are not exactly as only digital objects. Algorithms may appear like a piece of code, okay, but who is writing this code? It's basically the humans who are writing this code. No, it is, algorithms don't come from the outer space. It is basically produced by humans. So all kind of cultural and social biases, other kind of uh, influences are ingrained in these seemingly technical objects. So this also brings them additional agency. Okay, we have the idea of like racist robots, which many of you might be aware of. For example, there are many countries which use AI or machine learning algorithms for taking governance decisions. Okay, now this is not only governance decisions; it is also other kind of decisions. Even in India, we have this kind of stuff. For example, like yeah, so how much should be the interest rate for somebody, when a financial institution is trying to lend some money to some entity, some person, what should be the interest rate for that person? So in India we have this very opaque idea of CIBIL score, and how it works and all everybody knows. Okay, uh, many of the countries or many of the business entities in other countries, even in India, have machine learning guided lending rate mechanism. Obviously, in India, RBI decides the basic lending rate and all, but you can see that financial institutions also can have their own say in what interest rate they want to lend money to somebody. So you can see that many of these machine learning algorithms look at financial behavior of people uh, from the perspective of, most of the time, the company, what makes it a profitable loan, and also partly the kind of people who makes these algorithms, so you can see that there are several cases. I don't remember the exact cases, but there are several cases of Western countries trying to use algorithms, machine learning algorithms in policing, especially in predicting problem hotspots, which part of the city may need more policing or more policing care. Apparently what happened is that the algorithms showed that the marginalized part of the city needs more policing, because you see, there is this general idea that poor people are thieves. Okay, you can see that this is a social prejudice which is ingrained in many of the people, including the people who are building these machine learning tools, which reflects in the way the tool works. Okay, you might also be aware of other kind of stuff like uh, training data bias. How do AI tools have a lot of bias ingrained in them because of the nature of training data they have? For example, in most of these popular LLMs, including DALI and things like that, they do have a huge training data set which has proportionally high number of Western images. So there are biases like that in their output. Okay, so anyway, my point here is that algorithms are not neutral objects. algorithms should be looked at or considered as cultural techniques, which brings a lot of agency to them, especially when used in a research setting. Okay, so if you look at, yeah, I will try to wind up soon. I think I'm going a bit overshort. What is the time now? 2:57. Okay. Uh, this is up to 3, right?
Yes, sir, but you can take your time. It's okay, sir.
Yeah, I'm just taking 5 more minutes. Okay. So if you look at common themes in data ethical frameworks, there are certain themes which are considered universal, which is taken care in several of the ethical frameworks. Okay. So one thing is about its human-centered approach. You should not forget that data is basically people in such cases. Okay, in some cases it is not, there are new non-human data also, but we are talking about social science research which involves data generated from people. So so this is what you see in terms of collecting informed by consent and things like that. Okay, and also it's about you see these kind of considerations general across different kind of data ethical frameworks, that of being transparent, how are you going to use this particular data which is being collected, how are you going to analyze it, and responsible use of data being collected for one particular, or claiming to be collected for one particular reason, then it is being used for other kind of purposes. Okay, so that would be a very ethically wrong kind of situation. And many of the time researchers think that once they collect data, it is their asset. Obviously it is their asset, but because it basically comes from other people, they are also stakeholders, they also have the say or the right to withdraw their data, data related to them, and also to decide on how these data can be used. So this is all about being transparent and collecting informed consent, and also it is in terms of our preventing and avoiding bias. This is actually a major concern, or which is reflected across different ethical frameworks on data analytics and AI use. So we already talked about how a couple of instances, how social prejudice uh, seeps into seemingly technical objects like algorithms, which kind of make uh, social bias reflect in other forms. So this could be in the form of, automating poverty or inequality. We already talked about uh, how certain machine learning algorithms have been proven to be working against or considering certain people with certain social background as problematic, especially in terms of allowing paroles for prisoners, or even deciding lending rates, and there are several such cases. So another common theme which you see across is respect for autonomy and privacy. This is a much understood instance that you have to inform users. And one thing is that uh, only collect data which is needed, because there is this general idea that especially in scrapping social media data and all that, scrap as much as possible, then use only what you need. But this may not be a very ethically correct decision. Okay, so you should not try to collect a lot of data, especially in terms of its granularity and all, than what is needed. Okay, and also establish codes of conduct about what are you going to do with this data, what are the procedures, how it is going to use, and later don't change it. That is about contextual integrity. This is also a common theme which you see across different ethical frameworks about data analytics. And with this I will try to wind up, because so ethics, when we talk about ethics, it has a lot of different aspects, but one very common form of ethics which we talk about in social science research or other kind of research, especially related to the use of AI, is ethics as research integrity, uh, or not using AI tools for in a way this would that would affect the integrity of your research practice. Okay, so it all boils down to using these kind of tools for drafting papers, or generating data and things like that. So there are several what do you call guidelines or things like that, pointers on how this can be done. This is one of such positions. I hope you are aware of COPE. COPE is actually an international body, which COPE stands for Committee on Publication Ethics, which is considered one of the key entity which decides on what is ethical in academic publishing and what is not ethical. Okay, now COP, it does not deal only with AI. It has a larger, broader scope, and COP existed before this what you call boom of AI tools came. And interestingly, COP does not only look at social science research. It has a broader focus, and it has other associated conglomerates like German Turk and all, which are from other areas. But so this is COP's stand on use of AI tools. Okay, so basically, it all boils down to one major aspect: AI tools cannot meet the requirements for authorship, as they cannot take responsibility for submitted work, and also they are not able to figure out conflict of interest, or look at and manage copyright and license agreement. These are concerns raised by COP. So it says that authors who use AI tools in the production of a manuscript or other elements of a manuscript must be transparent in disclosing that this particular part was, or this particular help was taken from AI tool. So you can see that this is actually a transparency mechanism, and as we have seen earlier, transparency, being transparent, is part of being ethical in many instances and in academic research as well. So one aspect here, in terms of using AI tools in drafting your research or in producing your research output, especially in the form of a research paper or something, you have to be transparent about it. Yes, I have used a tool, so and so a tool or model for this particular purpose. This is a necessity. Now, it does not mean that you can do everything with an AI tool and then be transparent about it, so it is ethically correct. This is not the case. Okay, so there are certain recognized uses for what you call AI tools. So many publishers actually allows you to be, if you are accountable for the content, originality of the content, and ethical issues of your research design, things like that, you can use AI tools in your research. Okay, so this is not like there is a complete ethical ban on using AI tools for research, because there is no point. Okay, for example, I have heard many people talk about or comparing manual vehicles with automatic vehicles. Many people saying that driving the manual is giving you the feel, that is the right or that is the way of uh, experiencing a drive. Okay, I can see that this is more like resistance to an innovation. See, automatic vehicles are also just like manual vehicles. Both allows you to improve your mobility, whatever. Obviously the costs and other kind of things are different, but saying that something new should not be used because it is new and different is not exactly a very rational decision. Same is the case with AI tools. It's not like because AI tools are non-human and they can generate a lot of things. There is no point in saying that this is going to kill jobs, you should not use it and all that. But it's mostly about ethical and responsible use of these tools. So there is this generic consensus among many publishers that AI tools can be used in research writing and other kind of stuff, as far as you are transparent about it. But in all cases, human oversight is very important. You need to have, it is not like you gave a prompt or a series of prompt, copy pasted everything, publish it as a paper. That would be grossly unethical. But if you are using it for improving readability, suppose you are coming from a third world country, you are need not be from third world country, you can be from another country as well. You don't have English as your mother tongue, you don't have uh, native proficiency in English because your mother tongue is something else. So obviously, this would impact your research visibility, because as of now, English is actually one of the major languages where you find a lot of research output, which is impactful research output. So you can take help of the tool for improving readability or conducting grammar checks, Now you can see that this is very different from giving a prompt to write an entire literature review section. This would more be like you write the literature review section and then asking the tool to tell what are the issues in terms of the syntactical or the grammatical issues. Both are different, because in the second case, you are reading the literature, you are critically looking at it, you are analyzing it and writing it. You are taking help only in case of improving your language, because you don't have proficiency in language, which is not necessarily a quality needed for all researchers. You should be adept in your area of research. You need not be adept in all languages in the world. Okay, so for that purpose, you can take the help of the AI tool, but not the other way. Not the other way in the sense, not asking the tool to do all the work and then giving some oversight. That may not be the correct or ethically right way. And we have already seen that there are several tools which we already use for referencing and managing, like Sotero, EndNote, things like that. They are all set of algorithms in a way which helps you do this referencing. But you see, again, this difference here is that these tools don't generate references on their own. You are reading a work and then using the tool to aid, like formatting, maybe in APA or other formats, and also for managing, because during a work you read through a lot of stuff, so keeping track is difficult. So having a tool to do that is good. It improves your efficiency, productivity, and at the same time ethically correct, because you are not asking the tool to generate what you call what you should do after reading a work. Okay, and there are several sections which are allowed or considered okay, ethically correct, using AI tools, especially idea generation. You see, you might so this is you might be aware of prompt engineering, as it is being called these days. This is a way of giving a series of prompts to an LLM or similar kind of AI tool to bring out a very what you call finer result which you are trying to find out, whatever it may be. It may be about editing a piece of text, it may be about so things like that. So idea generations, especially for social science research or similar kind of research instances, using an AI tool is considered completely fine, because you have an initial idea and then you are using an AI tool to give more shape to the idea. It is sometimes really helpful. It is sometimes more like chatting with a friend, in terms of an idea which you have, which that friend is also an expert of. But in all these cases, you need to be aware of what the tool is telling you. You should not take it for granted always. But for idea generation, because you are just giving shape to your idea, this is considered perfectly fine. Same is the case with brainstorming. Identifying and classifying literature, because most of the time literature search is very challenging in terms of what you call um, initial part of the research study. So identifying and classifying literature, if you are using a tool for that, it is considered ethically fine, as far as you are reading the actual work and making sense of it. And as you can see, many of the freely available tools have this hallucination issue. And in all these cases, rigorous review is very important. Okay, and as I have discussed earlier, AI tools can be used in research methods as well, but you should be transparent about it. If you have used a particular tool, if you have used a particular method, you should be transparent about its use. So these are some of the unrecognized uses. One thing is, I have already told you, a tool cannot be a co-author or an author. So authorship for A tools is completely ruled out. And A tools should not be used for drawing recommendations or conclusions. It's not like you feed some data into the AI tool and ask it to write the whole conclusion discussion part. That may not be the ethically correct thing, because the LLM does not have the social and cultural context from which this data originates and the kind of questions you are trying to ask. That is something which you only know, or you only understand, or that is your contribution as a researcher, your standpoint and the interpretive point of view. So the LLM will not be able to do it for you. And also, because there are several cases where, especially in science research, where image manipulation, image manipulations have been a serious concern across different science disciplines when it comes to research. Researchers generating images from one particular lab experiment and then using that in another context, or even changing that image for showing other kind of results for the experiment, has been a concern so far. But with the coming of these kind of AI tools, what we see is that many of these, at least there are cases where AI tools have been used for manipulating original data, including images, in science research. And I'm pretty sure that is happening in social science research as well. Uh, this is considered grossly unethical. So there are different publishers who have clear guidelines about uh, not using AI tools for altering core research data or results. Uh, so creating autonomous content means the whole content being generated by AI tool is prohibited by certain publishers. And also citing generative AI text is slightly a point of contention, but most of the publishers don't allow uh, citing AI as an author. For example, you find some article written by some LLM, you cannot cite LLM as an author, because for the earlier cases which we discussed, okay, and we already discussed about not allowing AI tools to change or alter images. With a couple of instances, I would stop this particular lecture and take questions if there are any. So I told you another aspect earlier, that we are at a point where we see a lot of change, sudden change happening, a new technology emerging, and also getting more accessible. So this is making, like, this is kind of, people are still figuring out what to do with it. So we will see a lot of ethically incorrect decisions taken by people or this point of time, and it will take some time before we figure out that, okay, this is just another tool. So what we are seeing is that there is a lot of, let's say, retractions or editorial action happening against use of AI tools or things which have been published using AI tools. Because you see, when ChatGPT and similar things become popular and accessible, a lot of people thought that, okay, this would be very clever to use these tools and produce a lot of stuff, even if not actual research papers. Because you can see in case of India and similar other countries, where there are publication incentives are involved in university systems and otherwise, having a publication in an impactful journal is very important, both in terms of career advancement as well as in many cases financial incentives are involved. So there have been cases of institutions or researchers trying to publish things which are solely generated by these kind of tools, AI tools, and in fact getting published also. Now, at that point of time, this editorial mechanisms or systems were not efficient enough to check for this kind of content, because typically journals what they used to do is to check for plagiarism maximum. They would, before the editor passes it on for review, it will actually, they will check for plagiarism to see whether it's original content. That was it, okay. So many of this content got published in many of the journals. This is just one case of one particular journal deciding to stop accepting commentaries and letters to the editor, because there have been an influx of researchers, most of them from third world, sending a lot of this to this journal, which are all solely produced by AI tools. Now we have also seen that just like there is an increase in AI tools which can write for you, there is also an increase for AI tools which detects whether something is written by human or an AI tool. So this would improve over a period of time, because the people have seen ways of uh, what you call overriding these detection tools. But you see, if you are using an AI tool for solely producing something and then claiming it as yourself, something written by you only, I'm pretty sure that in the future this would be easily detected, which would land you in maybe more embarrassment. So trying to be ethically correct is not just about being ethically correct, it might also save you other kind of trouble. So with this, I think I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harikrishnan sir.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it was
think it
truly an
went a bit.
insightful session.
Yeah, I think it went a bit too much, but still, yeah. If you have anything to
No, it is
ask,
necessary. There are a couple of questions in the chat box, but before we start with Q&A,
yeah,
some things which my observations, I just wish to put it across on the table so that we can start our deliberation.
yes, yes, yes,
Uh,
please.
I remember a quote that great power comes with great responsibility, and technology is no exception. So, as you mentioned today, ethics in AI and data analytics need some deeper insights. I mean, especially data privacy, data governance. You mentioned many aspects. I think in today's in fast evolving media landscape, it is necessary for us to talk, discuss, debate on ethics.
Yes,
From
yes,
understanding the challenges of data journalism to ethical consideration, I mean, you highlighted integrity, accuracy, and accountability of an individual. It is
yeah,
clear that AI continues to shape our world, but ethical decision making will play a crucial role in ensuring its responsible use. We, as an end user, and at the same time, should be more considerate and responsible whenever we use technology. So that you very beautifully you highlighted. So thank you so much for such a wonderful session. And
yes,
there are a couple of questions in the chat box, and my colleague Ananya will moderate it. Sir.
yeah, please.
Yes, sir. So we have a question from Ms. Sujata. She asks, nowadays we have across caste census data, which is generally undertaken by the survey method. How about AI application to collect data ethically?
Yeah, so that is actually a very interesting question because, as you can see, caste identity is very sensitive information, especially for individuals coming from Indian context.
Can you hear me now? Sorry, uh, there was a power outage at my end.
Yeah, you're
Can you hear
audible.
me?
Yes, sir.
You're
Now
audible.
we
You're
can hear
audible.
you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Sorry for the interruption. The question related to using AI tools for collecting cost related data. As you can see, caste identities and caste related data is a very sensitive information for individuals, especially marginalized individuals or otherwise also in Indian context. So, this is not only about caste data, or it's not just about using AI tools for collecting caste data. So even if you're using an AI tool, for example, I'm not very sure about what kind of tool can be used, what AI tool can be used for collecting this kind of data, because apparently it should go to individuals and collect the data if that is what is meant. Uh, in that case, one thing is that the respondents should know that this particular information is being collected, and this is being collected for this kind of purposes, academic purpose, whatever, and this is what you are going to use it for. This is one aspect. Like, this is actually the aspect of informed consent. Whether you are doing it manually or you are doing it with the help of an AI tool does not make a difference here. This is a very basic ethical aspect which is needed. As you may be aware, many of the, many of the institutional ethics reviews these days need surveys which collect this kind of data to have a very clearly presented uh, question at the beginning of the survey questionnaire, which explicitly asks the respondent whether you want to be part of the survey or not. So you would not see that this kind of practice was prevalent earlier, but nowadays this is a very prevalent method. So basically, why is it given? Because it is trying to get clear informed consent from the respondent. So whether you are using an AI tool or not in this case is the same, but what makes it different, maybe in this case of using an AI tool for collecting caste data, is how you are going to use that data set. Okay, now uh, because your question specifically mentions about collecting caste data, I understand this situation might need this kind of
Hari sir, you got
The
disconnected.
earlier idea, you need not what you call collect that, minimize what you are collecting, minimize only minimize the individual data which you are collecting only to what you need. So unless cost is not a major part of the study, you may not need to collect that data. But otherwise, if you are collecting it, and also if an AI tool is being used, anonymization of the data is very important, because as a researcher, you might need to you can have access to this cast data, especially connecting a particular respondent to a particular identity. But if you are going to share this data set somewhere else as a supplementary resource or something like that, even if you using an AI tool, you should make sure that proper anonymization measures has been taken, so that individual identities and then their associated caste identities are not revealed. Otherwise, you need to take an informed consent from each respondent, whether you are collecting it through manual ways or AI ways, that they are okay revealing this information, because caste per se is not a sin or anything. And in some cases, people are ready to reveal their caste identity. So collecting an informed consent from each respondent about revealing their identity can also be an ethical, making that your data collection is ethically correct. Did I answer that question?
Thank you, sir. We have another question by
Yeah.
Mr. Abhijit. He asks how to tackle regional keyword search using AI tools, as other existing data tools focuses on Western formats and therefore shows no result for many regional search or keyword query required for Indian audience. He says that it has become quite challenging for SEO and content
That's muted
optimization.
in between. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Would you please repeat that question?
Yes, definitely. So we have a question from Mr. Abhijit. He asks, how do we tackle regional keyword search using AI tools, as other existing data tools focus on Western formats and shows no result for many regional search or keyword query required for Indian audience? He also says how it has become quite difficult for SEO and content optimization in digital media to do this.
Yeah, this is a very interesting question, because though I don't have a very clear answer to this, but because it actually points to a kind of systemic bias, because most of the search engine algorithms and also a huge proportion of data on internet is coming from other regions, and English has a disproportionate presence on internet. It has an impact on the kind of AI tools which is available for you for finding, searching and retrieving information, especially in these kind of instances. So this instance itself shows a kind of systemic bias which is against regional content, and also researchers who are trying to find regional what you call content, or find regional search keywords. This is a problem. I don't have a very clear answer to this, but what I have tried doing earlier is to use advanced research methods, especially using search operators or things like that, instead of just using an AI tool only for retrieving this information. My suggestion is to, for example, I really don't understand how possibly an AI tool can be only used. For example, if you're using Copilot or something, yes, this can be done. But you can also use the AI tool to structure your query. Like, maybe you can prompt using your specific context, and then ask it what kind of combination would get me this kind of content. This could be one way of using it. Otherwise, triangulating using an AI tool along with other kind of search operators on general search engine might also be helpful. What I
Sir, we are unable to hear you.
Okay. Sorry. I was not aware of me being muted. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think I need to say it from the beginning, right? You did not get my response at all?
We did, I think last 10-20 seconds we lost you.
Okay, fine. So what I was trying to tell is that you might need to triangulate using an AI tool and generic advanced search techniques for finding specific regional language content. Otherwise, you can also take the help of AI tools to structure search queries, which might get you regional content. And another development which I have seen, like in case of Factly and all, they are developing AI tools like Tagore.ai and all, where the training database and also the database associated with the tool to bring down hallucinations are partly regional language content. So this might also help you find a more relevant results because of this kind of systemic bias against regional language content on general internet and also in popular AI tools.